Holidays are a time for homecoming, but also for cultural journeys. You can find elements of both in the 17th season of A Christmas Celtic Sojourn with Brian O'Donovan, with performances starting December 13th. To tell us about this year's lineup and flavors is the host of A Celtic Sojourn on WGBH Radio, Brian O'Donovan. Thank you very much for being with us, Brian.
Great to be with you.
Brian, you've been doing the radio show for quite a number of years, but take me to the point we decided to branch out and do what is, I guess, really a variety show.
It is essentially an old-fashioned variety show that we've put together around Christmas, but it was really harkening back to my own work in radio of putting together different pieces of music and songs and stories together for a radio program that was broadcast nationally for quite a number of years. And way back I said, well, let's try to do this as a live event. And we did at the Somerville Theatre in Davis Square in Somerville, not expecting it to be just once every year, obviously, but we would do one show and we'd be happy if it sold out. Well, it sold out in about 2 or 3 hours or something, and we were just very, very surprised that there was that much demand, and it grew steadily from there, and surprisingly from there into what it is today, which is one of the main Christmas offerings in downtown Boston.
Now, people who listen to your show on a regular basis, I'm sure they're going to be familiar with the kind of music, the caliber of performers, but mixing them all together, I mean, how does that work for you?
It really works, and what you just described, it is a variety show. I grew up with variety show, both on television and live, where people would just entertain themselves through the long nights by bringing out whatever they could find, whatever they had on offer, and that might range from a song to a piece of music to a dance to a piece of poetry, a story, and all of those things blending together, of course, was a backdrop to Christmases, my Christmases in days gone by, and putting that on stage and using the great well of terrifically talented people that are out there in Celtic music and indeed beyond is relatively easy these days because, as I said, there's an abundance of talent.
Speaking of talent, one of the singers in this year's lineup may be new, Siobhan Miller. Tell us about her.
Siobhan Miller is a good example again of a crop of young singers that are coming from Scotland. Last year we had Hannah Rarity, for example. Previously we had Corinne Polwart in that situation. These are dynamic young performers who are infused with Celtic music generally in their DNA, if you will, but are also willing to take their more contemporary influences, often from the conservatoire, as they call it, the educational system in Glasgow, into the university level, often willing to take that and their contemporary influences back into their Celtic traditions and giving it a very unique flavour. And Siobhan Miller is very much from that tradition.
Well, speaking of those hybrids, another example is one of the dance talents that is going to be Jason Oremus. He was with Riverdance for a while, but he's been doing some other things lately.
He has, and he's been blending a lot of hip-hop into his moves. Of course, Irish traditional dance is essentially percussive dance, Chris. That's what it is. So it incorporates elements of tap, come from Irish traditional music and African American traditions, and again they blend in this country well into what we see today as hybrids of river dance. But Jason takes hip-hop, takes a kind of street dance basically, and blends it into Irish traditional music and traditional dance in a very, very effective, impressive, and very humorous way. It doesn't take itself seriously.
Well, another part of Celtic tradition, whether in Ireland or Scotland, are these Scandinavian invasions. You've got maybe a more kinder and gentler incursion. You have a Swedish trio performing. Tell us a little bit about them.
We do, actually. It's to make your reference back, is that it's not quite the Vikings arriving on our shore, but I think that Scandinavian music generally has blended very easily in with traditional music from Scotland and Wales and England and Ireland indeed. And this year we're having the Nyckelharp. In Sweden it's pronounced as the Nyckelharpa, and it is a keyed fiddle, and Olaf Johansson is coming to us from the group Vassen, and he's going to be with us demonstrating how this beautiful instrument and how this beautiful music blends squarely in with traditional Celtic music.
A couple of other familiar names, Liz Carroll and Fiddle.
Liz Carroll is from Chicago, grew up in the Sligo tradition of fiddling, which is a very flamboyant, kind of exotic style of traditional Irish fiddling. Liz Carroll is regarded today as one of the finest exponents of it in the world, has won many All-Ireland championships on the fiddle, and is a great writer of traditional tunes in that traditional style. So we're delighted to have her with us, and she's teaming up with a young fiddler, Hayley Richardson, who actually often cites Liz Carroll as one of her inspirations, one of her influences. So we've got a kind of a multi-generational fiddle thing going on stage, which I think will be really, really interesting to see.
You have another performer, Matthew Byrne from Newfoundland. What's he like?
Now, Newfoundland is one of those maritimes, obviously up and off of Canada, like Nova Scotia and Prince Edward Island and New Brunswick and Newfoundland, Labrador. And Newfoundland particularly has a lot of Irish influence in it. And Matthew Byrne, as the name would suggest, has that Irish influence. So he brings the great song tradition, the ballad tradition from Newfoundland to us. And I think he's one of the best male singers in traditional Celtic music, and I regard Newfoundland as being so inextricably linked with Celtic music that it is a form of Celtic music. So he's bringing that fine voice and a family tradition of singing Newfoundland songs with their deep Irish connections and, of course, seafaring traditions to the stage of the Cutler Majestic Theatre.
Yeah, because one thing you do when you bring all this together, you have a bit of a narrative going. So even though it looks like a variety show and the music sounds Celtic, there are things that remind us of when we were growing up at Christmas. Is that part of what you're thinking of too?
Very much so. It really is a gathering. I mean, what I say to the audience, really, they're part of what we do. They're not just passively observing what we do. It is really the atmosphere of gathering at somebody's house and just saying, you know, give us a song that you like, tell us a story, or give us a recitation, or tell us what it was like. As I say in Ireland, mar a bhíoch ann fadó, what it was like long ago. And that really what it is. And I think at Christmas time, Chris, people give themselves a little bit more permission to be sentimental, a little more emotions that they will allow to happen in their gatherings. And we integrate that into the show, which has an arc, as you said, a narrative, and it goes through those periods of time where we allow people in the seats to reminisce perhaps about people who are no longer with them, growing up at happier times, and also looking forward to the future, where these once-a-year rituals come to mean something very, very distinctive and very, very important in people's lives.
The performances start on December 13th. You get some more details on times and locations somewhere on the line?
We do. It's just go to wgbh.org/Celtic, and there are samples of the music you might look to experience before coming to the event. There are samples from Christmas Celtic Sojourns gone by, and all of the details there. We've got a very interesting performance this year that we've put in play for the first time. It's a sensory friendly performance, which basically is designed for people who otherwise might have a family member that doesn't feel comfortable in a normal theatre setting, perhaps somebody on the autism spectrum or somebody other with attention issues, and we've made this a very safe environment for them to still come to this beautiful theatre and experience a Christmas Celtic Sojourn. That's coming up on the 20th at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Great to be with you.
Brian O'Donovan from a Celtic Sojourn on WGBH Radio.